guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped, and welcome to the Audi R8 rear-wheel drive. So I'm here today at Winkworth Farm, which is near Malmesbury, on an Audi range review. I've got pretty much every car in the Audi range at my disposal today, and I was given my choice of keys. And first car of the day simply had to be this stunning R8 rear-wheel drive. And the reason I've chosen this car, apart from the fact it's beautiful, and I really want to see what an R8 is like with rear-wheel drive, but for me, R8s have quite a special place on the channel. An R8 was the first supercar I ever drove on Petrol Ped way back in the day. I drove an R8 Quattro out of Goodwood. I only drove the car for 20 minutes, but it left quite an impression on me. And then about 18 months ago, I got to spend a whole week with an R8 V10 Performance in Nardo Grey, and I simply fell in love with that car. It was the first time I'd spent any real length of time with a supercar, and I found it a fascinating week. But this is the rear-wheel drive R8. It's 540 PS, so it's got enough poke, that's for sure, but just a little bit less than you'd find in the Quattro Performance variant. I think in this spec it looks absolutely stunning. Vegas yellow. It's certainly, well, you're going to be seen coming. If you want to fly under the radar, this is definitely not a car for you. But for me, it's right up there. The big challenge I've got is I'm on a farm, and there's a big farm track to get out onto the roads, and all the roads are covered in that horrible winter muck. So I don't think this car is going to stay this clean for very long. But let's take a bit of a look around it before we take it up the road for a drive. I love the rear view of this car. It's also incredibly windy today, so apologies for any wind flutter on my mic. The reason I love the rear view of the R8 is because you can look through that window and you see that V10 just sat there in the engine bay, and it just looks stunning. And then I just think that the exhausts, these are just so big and so aggressive. You've got this lovely kind of piano black detailing. I just think this car looks incredible from the rear. But the interior is a very special place as well. I'm going to get inside and basically protect myself from the wind and the rain. Winter's definitely here, people. It's horrible out there, but it's beautiful in here. When you get into the cabin of any supercar, for me, it's always a really great experience, and they're very special places. This particular cabin is so focused around me as a driver. There's just no distractions at all. I've got virtual cockpit in front of me, but there's no big center screen. I've got these lovely proper dials, proper analog stuff. And I'm just surrounded by nice materials. These seats, oh my goodness me, they're good. You kind of sink straight into them and you're there instantly focused on driving. And what I'm really interested to find out about this car, I know a few people have driven it, and I've obviously seen the reviews, and I'm a massive Quattro fan. I've probably banged on about how much I love four-wheel drive and how much I love Quattro, because it gives me the confidence. Just have a look at my recent S3 video. And what's interesting is this car is completely stepping away from that. You know, Audi are famous for their Quattro four-wheel drive in their performance cars. All their RS range are four-wheel drive, and you know, all of the R8s have been, up until this point, four-wheel drive. But this rear-wheel drive car is aimed at giving you that finesse, that rear-wheel driving experience in an Audi. My challenge today is going to be, I don't think I'm going to be able to tap into that a great deal, purely because of the roads and the road conditions and the weather in particular. Really, to fully understand this car, I think I need to spend a long time with it, but I'd also need to get it on a track. However, that said, I wasn't going to turn down the opportunity to drive it, so let's get some cameras stuck up and let's go and explore some of the roads around here, get the car a little bit more dirty, and then I also just want to hear that V10 sing and just experience this car. Right then, let's do this. really not very nice weather. So first things first is getting out of the venue. It's a beautiful wedding venue, but it has the most dodgy path by quite some way. Okay, so I'm going to stick it into dynamic mode, and then there's some really nasty potholes and things. This is where you could really do with a Quattro R8, just getting out of the venue. So, first thing about owning a supercar that I learned when I spent time with the R8 is that your whole approach to roads like this, and potholes and car parks, sleeping policemen, just fundamentally changes the second you own a supercar. They're much lower, the wheels are far more expensive to get refurbished, and just generally speaking, everything costs lots more money. Oh, see, now that's better. So straight away I've just pulled the steering wheel a little bit closer to me, and that's instantly, whenever I'm driving, if I can get the steering wheel nice and close, and I'm pretty sure that's something I've learned since I started doing a little bit of racing. I think when you first start driving, you kind of, your arms straight out and you're doing all of that. No, you don't want to do that. You want the steering wheel quite close to you, so you've got, a little bit of bend in your arms, and you've got more feeling for the car that way. And happy to report that the driving position you can get into in this car very easily is super comfortable. And I must admit, so far the ground clearance isn't too scary, he says. So, we're out on the road. So the first thing, I'm in dynamic mode, and I'm just gonna, in the auto change box, but in sport mode. And I just first of all want to get out onto some decent bits of road, but I just want to get a feel for the car. So the premise of this car then, 540 PS, so it's a supercar at the end of the day. It's got stellar performance, but all of that's going through the rear wheels. And I know if you're a McLaren or a Ferrari owner, you think, well, what's the big deal here? Why are you making such a big thing about it being rear wheel drive? Well, the simple reason, as I've said, is the R8 from its original birth was a Quattro car, much like the Gallardo and the Huracan, which shared the R8 platform. I mean, I know they've had a rear-wheel drive version of the R8 for a while now, but this is the very latest generation. I always find interesting, there's something when you get in a supercar, and the thing for me is they're so unobtainable for most of us. I mean, I'll never own one. I'm pretty sure I'll never own a supercar, and there's a part of me says I'm not so sure I would ever want to own one, just because of the worries. Well, first of all, they're incredibly expensive, so you need so much disposable income before you can buy one, and don't fall into the trap of thinking that these are things that you can pick up on finance and buy cheaply. They're not. There's no such thing as a cheap supercar to own. And these, the guys that buy them and sell them and flip them on YouTube so readily as if they were toys, I just find remarkable. These are expensive things to own, so when you drive one, it's always a special thing for me, and it always puts a big smile on my face. The big challenge is you really want the right kind of road. You want the open, flowing road. Ideally, you want a circuit so you don't have to worry about speed limits as well. Small like it. So red line's at 8,500 RPM, and I'm not using anywhere near full throttle today. I mean, these road conditions are really slippy. I mean, I drove here to the range review in the S3 press car that I've got at the moment. That's four-wheel drive, and that was slipping around a bit. Let's see if I can just... So that's the beauty of having a supercar, is you can just basically breathe on the throttle and get past something. It's more like it. It's one of these cars that kind of tempts you to go a little bit quicker and tempts you to push on a little bit more than maybe you should. It's very good. Definitely a day for a gentle right foot. Definitely. You know, when you start YouTube and you think, oh, maybe one day I'll get to drive a supercar, the day in your mind's eye, that vision, that dream you have of driving a supercar doesn't look anything like today. You imagine yourself in some warm country driving up a mountain pass. Nevertheless though, it's still always a great experience. Certainly got a nice feel through the steering. It's got a nice poise on the road. But instantly, the thing I've got in the back of my mind is it's rear-wheel drive and it's a powerful car, so I'm instantly a little bit more cautious than I would be if I was in its Quattro sibling. And I find that quite interesting. And I know many of you, I find it quite interesting the comments I get sometimes in videos. I think it's very easy to be lulled into a false sense of security when you watch drivers like Chris Harris or Tiffany Dell or one of these driving gods that are able to drift out of corners with all four tyres lit up and look like driving heroes, to think that we're all like that. And the vast majority of us aren't. I'm a good driver, but I'm not like that. I'll do it on a track sometimes, but I'm not a big fan of doing it very often. And therefore, you know, and I know that there's a whole group of driving enthusiasts that love that feel of getting the back end out and slipping the back end and so on. And this is the car for you. This is definitely the car for you if you like that. But this isn't the car for me. And I love it to bits, and the engine's amazing. One of the things I love about the R8 is just that level of safety and security that you get from it being a Quattro platform. I think this would be an amazing car to have and go on a track. And you know, I know when I've driven things like McLarens and so on, they are brilliant, brilliant things. But here we go. Oh, it's just got so much go. Oh my God. It's relentless. And what's quite nice is, if you think of it, it's only a little bit more powerful than the Giulia Quadrifoglio I had recently. That was 510 brake, and this is 540. So it is quite a nice amount of power to be putting through the rear wheels. It's not like I'm pushing 700-800 horsepower or something. The performance variants of these with Quattro are just over 600 PS. So they have dialed it back to make it more usable, and it's not like it's super scary and super intimidating. It's just in the back of my mind, and it's probably because it's such a horrible day. I reckon on a summer's day, or where you've got warm tarmac, you could really progress and really enjoy this car. Just today, today, there's no way I'm going to take the traction control system off, as I'll end up like that in a ditch. Oh yes. It's dealing with this road surface brilliantly, because this is a really, really grotty back road, basically. I don't know how I found myself down here. And it's soaking the bumps up brilliantly. I mean, the suspension is amazingly compliant. God, it covers the ground well. But the most impressive thing for me so far is the way it's dealing with this road surface, with the bumps. Absolutely incredible. Now let's just have a quick see what it's like traction wise. So traction control on there, and you can just feel it slip. And I'll give it its dues. I think you would have to be really, really heavy to get into any major trouble. Maybe I'm just learning to grow into the car a little bit. Maybe I'm just starting to feel more comfortable with it. Certainly sounds good though. Wow. Oh, look at this road, man. Change my opinion? Am I allowed to change my views the longer I go into driving this car? You need to trust this car. So even though I've got my I need Quattro on a day like today, rear wheel drive, it's going to kill me, is going on in the back of my head, the more you trust the car, the more you rely on its systems. I've got the traction control turned on, and the more you rely on its grip, the better it becomes. And actually, the less intimidating it becomes. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not sure, because I think the challenge is I'm getting more and more confident in the car, and the grip is still rubbish, and the road's still full of mud and low traction horribleness. And I'm sure you could get too confident and it would end up biting you. But the more I've driven this car, the more I realise that it's so well set up, the suspension is so good, that actually dealing with rear wheel drive 540 PS is just not a problem, and it allows you to really drive the car quite hard. And you can tell it's a conscious decision Audi have made. Let's pare the power back a little bit, let's just make it a little bit more drivable, and it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And I just want to spend more time with it now, because I think it's one of these cars, the more seat time, the more confidence, the better it gets. Man, I can imagine this kind of dry on a really nice bit of open road or on a motor circuit would be sensational. And that's it. I reckon I'm going to finish there. I kind of knew it would be good, and I approached it in the wrong way. My head approached it as, why isn't this Quattro? It needs to be Quattro. It can't deal with the grip conditions we've got today, and that is the wrong approach. You don't approach it like an Audi R8 Quattro at all. In fact, don't approach it like an Audi at all. Just approach it like a really nicely set up supercar. It's got a lot of go. It's got power to give, and it pulls like a train. But it's been set up in such a way that it can deal with that. The most impressive thing for me, by quite some way, just get out of this horrible junction. Let me just. The most impressive thing about this car is the suspension. It's phenomenal. It's so well set up and so able to deal with the grotty roads I've been driving on today. I mean, some of these roads, the bumps and lumps, you would, in a more highly strung supercar, you would worry about it upsetting the car or grounding out, you know, and I haven't done any of that today, even at pace, and that's why this car's so good. Anyway guys, massive thank you to Audi UK for the invite today, but I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have done so, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol for plenty more content to come. And I'll see you on the next film guys, but you take care, drive safe.